Almost a year ago now, I posted a video called Top 10 Game Crashing Glitches in Paper Mario. A lot of people took interest in the footprint storage crash, where I manipulate the game's memory with a variety of specific steps. Fairly recently, I discovered a setup which basically took the footprint storage glitch even further, making Paper Mario very broken and leading to a game crash that corrupts the music. The first of many steps is to have Mario triggered into Chapter 7 before reaching Shiver Mountain. There's a cutscene that we need available, which will not be present if we're past this point. Now on to the first trick we'll be taking advantage of, the sushi glitch. By using sushi at a very specific position of the Shiver City dock, our position will glitch out and sushi will be swimming on land. This effect persists between rooms and allows us to use sushi's dive ability to get out of bounds virtually anywhere we want. But that's not all sushi can do. Remember, Mario was never intended to encounter an enemy while riding sushi, but with the sushi glitch that's a possibility. Upon finishing a battle with this glitch, we'll be temporarily dismounted from sushi and the glitch will still continue in the next room. But what's actually at work here is a lot more complex than it appears. To explain, we're going to be taking a look at two important memory addresses, 01324F28, which we'll name the cutscene control address, and 01324F3C, which we'll refer to as the active cutscene address. The game reads the values of the cutscene control address to determine whether or not Mario can move. This is used to lock his position during cutscenes and certain animations. The active cutscene address is more about tracking whether or not Mario is in a cutscene. The important thing is these two addresses work together to determine whether or not Mario is allowed to move. But that's where the sushi glitch comes in. The cutscene control address is a 4-byte value which normally looks like this if Mario can move. Under the same conditions, the active cutscene address looks like this. The most important bytes we're going to be paying attention to are the ones I've enclosed in brackets. The current values are 00, but if the cutscene control address recognizes that the active cutscene address is set to 01, it will change to a certain value dependent on the type of cutscene. If Mario talks to an NPC or enters a general cutscene, this value is set to 20. If Mario is riding a partner like Sushi, the value is set to 30. Additionally, the value of the active cutscene address is set to this. The 01 in brackets makes sense because Mario is considered in one cutscene. In the event Mario were to enter two cutscenes at once, you might think this value would increase to 02. But this is only true in the event the cutscenes are classified as different types. There aren't too many conditions where multiple cutscenes will play at once during normal gameplay, but it's worth clarifying because we'll be doing a lot of manipulation to avoid setting the value of that byte to 02. When messing with these addresses that control Mario's movement, it's pretty easy to accidentally softlock the game, so pretty much every action we take will be intentional in order to work around this issue. Anyway, I briefly mentioned that encountering an enemy with the sushi glitch active allows us to gain control of Mario again. Leaving a battle prompts the game to reset a number of values, and we call that a refresh for simplicity. Since it's normally impossible to encounter an enemy in this way, the cutscene addresses get a little bit confused during this refresh. When Mario is able to move after the battle, he still has some of Sushi's properties. For example, it's impossible to open menus even though we can move. The active cutscene address gets confused since a couple memory addresses are suggesting that Mario is still on Sushi, while others think he's able to move freely. Thankfully, the active cutscene address gets told, "Stop using your partner" after a battle, which prompts the first two bytes of the active cutscene address to go from 0101 to 0000. As you can see, the values in brackets decreased, which is part of the reason I'm able to move after a fight. However, a few memory addresses have the same values as when we're riding Sushi, which is why the sushi glitch continues between rooms. But more importantly, the game still thinks I'm using a partner after battle. But after the second battle, it would decrease once more since it thinks we're still riding Sushi, and will lower the bracketed values by 1 once again. However, since we're working with unsigned bytes, -1 is not a feasible value, so it instead underflows to the maximum possible value, FF. So, in a way, the game thinks we're in 255 cutscenes, but because this was achieved by underflowing values rather than increasing them, it will not lock my movement until 3 battles, where it reaches a value of FE. But we don't want to softlock the game, so instead we stop at 2 encounters and head to the super block. When we hit this, the active cutscene address updates, setting the bracketed value to 00. This should be 01, but because it was FF and incremented by 1, it overflowed to 0. Since this is one of the bytes that interacts with the cutscene control address, we can manipulate it by starting another sequence that locks Mario's movement to reach a value of 01, then ending it to set the address back to 00, telling the game we're not in a cutscene. Luckily for us, the Superblock cutscene prompts a partner swap following a few lines of dialogue, so we can switch partners to lower the active cutscene address's bracketed value to 00. It might be difficult to understand why a partner swap was necessary since we are at a value of 00 before switching partners. However, the cutscene control address's bracketed value only allows us to move if we decrease to a specified value. Now we can move during the upgrade sequence and hit the blue switch to start another cutscene, which we'll use to our advantage. You might have noticed I picked Cooper as my partner. This cutscene normally requires you to have Cooper as the active party member, and the sequence reacts a little differently if you use another partner. We don't really want to do that quite yet because we're going to be swapping partners during this cutscene. Before that, we have to hit the switch while buffering between the two options, so we can keep two cutscenes active at once. When the second cutscene starts, we select the bottom option of the Superblock upgrade sequence, which ends it and allows us to move. The Cooper on the left in this cutscene is fake, so we eventually have to hit him with a hammer, but since we can move, it's possible to start multiple cutscene sequences at once. Right after hitting the fake Cooper, we have a small window where it's possible to open the partner menu, so we switch to Bo and use her invisibility. This normally wouldn't do much for us, but this cutscene ends with a battle, meaning we can start a fight while transparent. To continue manipulating these values so we can corrupt the game's music, we need the bracketed value of the cutscene control address to reach 80. This actually functions the same as a value of 00, but is used when Mario uses Bo's invisibility. A value of 80 tells the byte to the left of it to change, and that byte tells the game that Mario is using his partner. Since all the bytes in the cutscene control address share information, we can use Mario's transparency value to manipulate the bracketed value later. Since another cutscene starts while we use Bo's invisibility and increase the bracketed value of the cutscene control address, the standard value of the cutscene, 20, and the standard value for using Bo, 80, are combined to reach a value of A0. A value of A0 essentially functions the same as a value of 20, so we can't move during a battle or anything, but again it suggests Mario is using Bo. This is important for after the battle because it will remain at A0, but the bracketed value of the active cutscene address will be at 01. We can lower this value and underflow it back to FF if we use Mario's spin animation to decrease the bracketed value of the cutscene control address to A0. Now while in a cutscene, we are technically in -1 cutscene, allowing us to stack 3 cutscenes total. You might be thinking that there's no way we can have a negative number of cutscenes, which is correct. Remember, the game underflows this value to FF, which basically considers us to be in 255 cutscenes. Much like how we still couldn't move when the bracketed value of the active cutscene address was simply 00, the game tracks whether or not this value increased or decreased. An underflow seems to act as sort of a special case, allowing us to move even though the game's memory suggests we're in 255 cutscenes. As you might have noticed, spinning makes Mario's sprite transparent, but we aren't actually considered invisible as if we were using Bo. This is fine because we're only using the transparency to manipulate the active cutscene address to FF, so the next step is to make our way back to the Superblock, which only means it's going to get more complex from here on out. When prompted to switch partners this time, we'll still be able to move as a result of the manipulation we've done so far. More importantly, we can use a partner's ability while they are switching out. So by switching to Wa and inputting down C during this sequence, the partner swap will be cancelled and will enter a state known as partner swap storage, which some of you guys might know as the baby-sized partner glitch. Unfortunately, Watt won't be tiny for very long, because during partner swap storage, many things such as cutscenes, enemy hitboxes, and loading zones are disabled, requiring us to advance a few game states by using small-scale menu refreshes. The first time we open a menu, the cutscene control address updates back to 20, which is important for our next few steps, but that alone isn't quite enough. By doing a second menu refresh, we can restore the enemy hitboxes and cancel the partner ability we stored previously. During the battle, the most important things to do are win the battle and choose the bottom option of the Superblock selection to cancel the cutscene. Since we're in a battle, the cutscene cancel is buffered, ending it on the first frame we return to the overworld. This will set the tracked values of the active cutscene and cutscene control addresses to 00. Now we're gonna do a glitch that stores pretty much the entire game. Everything will be frozen and inactive, except for Mario in the status bar. This is done by opening the partner menu while Mario performs his thumbs up animation, and allows us to cancel a number of animations if the storage itself is cancelled, which we can then use to manipulate the cutscene control address further. So if we spin while pulling a menu up, our spin gets cancelled and manipulates the active cutscene address to FF00FE45, meaning we can finally pull off a maneuver that breaks the game's menu system. You may have noticed that menus typically freeze many elements of the game in place, but as a result of manipulating related memory addresses, we can change that. To do so, we must perform a double frame perfect tornado jump, which will update the cutscene control address at a few different intervals of the animation. So if we can land a tornado jump while pulling up the partner menu on the same frame the cutscene control address updates, we can force it to allow movement with the partner menu up while the game is still active. Ensuring we don't cancel out of the menu in the meantime, we make our way back to the superblock to translate this storage to the superblock's upgrade menu, which functions very differently from the standard partner menu. We can actually store this menu between rooms, known as Upgrade Menu Storage, or UMS for short. UMS is easily the most broken, complex glitch in Paper Mario. It isn't completely understood, however there are components that we know how to control. This glitch seems to react with the game's memory depending on where and when objects are spawned, which we'll talk about momentarily. To corrupt the music, we need to create the textures of every object on the upgrade menu to temporarily store the sprite data, which is why I cycle through it very quickly. When the game attempts to read the stored sprites in the next room, it appears to end up searching in many different areas of the memory unsuccessfully, which can corrupt their values and even crash the game. However, we can somewhat control what happens by manipulating an element of the Wii's GX subsystem that maps the vertices of on-screen objects to their respective coordinates, known as XF loads. When these transform units update, UMS reacts accordingly. We technically don't have UMS until we change rooms, but we can somewhat control what happens by changing the difference between the number of XF loads in this room and the number of XF loads active the frame the next room begins loading. The normal number of XF loads in this room deviates between 535 and 548. When sprites are loaded and drawn on screen, they add to this number. This includes each individual character of text when it appears on screen. Footprints in the snow add 4 XF loads for the first spawn, and the rest add 3. The status bar at the top also contributes to this number, adding exactly 387 XF loads in this scenario, but it could add more or less depending on Mario's stats. It also automatically appears when opening menus and automatically disappears when loading zones are taken, so we must assume that before changing rooms we will lose 387 XF loads. To trigger music corruption in the next room with UMS, we need an exact total of 1006 XF loads. This whole time I've actually been micromanaging the text boxes on screen to accommodate for our low value of XF loads so we can reach this number. The combination of XF loads I use in this demonstration to reach 1006 requires the following. The base number of XF loads in this room is 535, which of course, as I said earlier, deviates, so we have to time when we leave the room. On top of that, we need 11 footprints on screen, 7 partners that are not sushi or lackluster upgraded, the absence of the bottom arrow of the upgrade menu, the current text box of the fake Cooper cutscene, the superblock upgrade text, and hovering our cursor over Bombette in the menu. Other things worth noting are that the footprints take about 100 frames to despawn, and the bottom arrow of the upgrade menu changes between on and off every 6 frames. And finally, if we time entering the next room so we have exactly 1006 XF loads, the result is a broken glitch leading to a game crash that corrupts the Shiver Mountain music. Obviously, this glitch is extremely complex, and we never would have gotten this far without the help of Glower, Brain, Bone Crusher, Rob Dog, Xylophone, Super Laser Dino, G1, Djix, Cryptic Fox, Impulent, and Hazelflame. And seriously, thank you guys for over 10,000 subscribers. Not really sure how that happened so quick, but I really do appreciate the support. I think that pretty much sums up this video, so thank you guys for watching and enjoy the music.